Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series. Hey everybody, welcome to another bonus episode of Battle of the Network shows. This is Rick here with Mike as always. Hey Mike.
Hey.
And today we have one of our list episodes.
List-o-rama.
Yes. And today on List-o-rama, we're going to do something maybe a little unique. We're looking specifically at youth actors who were added to shows. And whereas we generally like to be positive, I think where possible, where appropriate, we're kind of looking at the flip side of that today, right?
Yeah. Kids, or in some cases, kid characters on cartoons who maybe were added later in the life of a series with the idea of bringing new life to it.
Yeah.
And kind of having the reverse effect.
Yeah, and I've got a big problem with this trend. I never liked this. And to me, I always thought that it was a ridiculous idea because I think it backfires. Because I think what it does is when they do that, it exposes and calls attention to the fact that your cast maybe, especially if you've got younger characters to begin with, it calls attention to the fact that they're older, and it puts them more in a mentor role, a big brother to somebody else or big sister, and I think it calls attention to the fact that your cast is aging rather than alleviates that issue. So
yeah,
this always has annoyed me for years, and today I'm going to get some of these things off my chest, I think. I'm looking at the ones that I didn't like, the ones that didn't work for me.
Right. Yeah, I would say also we're more commenting on the creative choice than the actors themselves. At least I am.
For the most part.
Kid actors, I'm not going to hold, if you're 5 and can't act, I'm not going to hold that against you.
True. Although in fairness, the way I looked at it was I looked at how I saw it at the time. So at the time I was a kid, so I had no problem with making fun of child actors because I was a kid myself. They would probably make fun of me if they had the opportunity. But your point is well taken, though. And yes, we're not really so much ripping the performer as ripping the creative failures.
Yeah. Okay, how about I start again?
Yeah, please do.
And
start with number 5.
Number 5, and this one might be a cheat a little bit because it's more a recurring character than one who was added and stayed around.
Okay, so it was one who was maybe there from the beginning, but they emphasized more?
No, who was there later and added for the same reasons that we're talking about, but wasn't a regular cast member.
Gotcha, okay, that's fine.
Character's named Leon from Night Court.
Oh,
played by Bumper Robinson.
That is a brilliant choice.
Bumper Robinson was on a lot of shows. He's definitely a recognizable face from that time. And I guess is still working and does a lot of voiceover and cartoon voiceover and stuff. So this character, I think, was in like 6 episodes. He was, I would say, a subset of this idea, the street urchin kind of subset. Yes. But he was the shoeshine boy at the court, and they found out he was homeless, and Harry was cared about him, was trying to take care of him, and the kid had been through a lot of bad foster homes and stuff. But I think there's a lot of running away and not. Yeah. And I think he got a chance to be adopted, and he ran away from them because he wanted Harry to adopt him, the judge. And that definitely seemed like we need to add some heart to a show that was generally just funny. Yep. And that's just frustrating. Nothing against Bumper Robinson. I mean, he was able to bring that heart, but it's not what I think people. At least I didn't go to Night Court for that. No. I went to Night Court for a parking ticket. No, wait, no. I went to the show because it was funny. It was a mostly show just about being funny. And every once in a while, Harry would be earnest about something, but, and it was a sort of found family idea and all of that. But
there was enough going on with the friendships between the characters and maybe like a love relationship between Harry and Marky Post. If you wanted to flesh out the character of Harry, you could go that way. Not give him some kid to make hangdog looks at. And this irritated me, too. I remember if there weren't exactly very special episodes, there were very special moments in the episodes. And totally out of character with the rest of the show, I did not appreciate the addition of Leon either. I think that's an excellent choice. All right, so we ready for my number 5?
Yeah.
My number 5, I'm a little embarrassed that I actually watched this show, but this really annoyed me. The addition of Joey to Give Me a Break. So you had the 3 daughters, and then because the show was on so long, everybody was aging out, and what do? You bring on a cute moppet of a kid, Joey Lawrence, and have him be like a foil for Nell Carter, basically.
Man,
Totally unnecessary, totally annoying, and then all the storylines were driven around Joey. And although I did like the way Nell Carter said Joey, almost as good as the way Charles Dutton as Rock said Joey.
Wait, Joey Lawrence was on Rock?
Yeah, it was it was quite a run. Rock's brother is ne'er-do-well brother, Joey, I think. But yeah, Joey Lawrence, not a fan of that, and did not. The show is on the decline anyway, but it was only accelerated. Even though actually, maybe it, for all I know, because they really changed the format of the show at some point too, when they brought Joey aboard. Yeah, not a fan.
Man, NBC loved Joey Lawrence.
They sure did.
Because I think he showed up on. Didn't he show up on Different Strokes first? Like any guest role?
Yeah, well, maybe he did, yeah.
Also named Joey.
Yeah.
Might have even been the same character. I don't know. It just seemed like, they definitely pushed him. And there's clips of him on The Tonight Show. And of course, later Blossom, people remember him, I think, more from that now.
Right. And it's funny because, like, when you bring a younger kid on like this, you're generally paving the way towards very special episodes. Mm-hmm. And while I may be a fan of very special episodes, I'm not a fan of very special episodes with new characters who seem contrived just to bring very special episodes. So, yeah, that's my number 5.
Excellent pick.
Thank you.
My number 4 is a little bit of cheat, too, because this show is mostly a 60s show, and I think the character may have premiered in the 60s, the end of the 60s. But Dodie from My Three Sons.
I consider that a very legitimate choice because that was an honorable mention I had.
So, near the end of My Three Sons, Fred MacMurray's character Steve got remarried to Beverly Garland, and she had a daughter. Mm-hmm. His daughter Dodie, who's like a 5-year-old kid, and just annoying and supposedly cute and all of that. And of course, the boys had all kind of outgrown their cuteness, their cute phase. And earlier in the life of the show, they'd done that with the Ernie kid, who they adopted. But in the episodes I've seen, I've never had the Ernie. I liked Ernie.
Yeah.
He's
Ernie
funny.
Seems to avoid this problem.
Right. And he was a little older. I mean, he wasn't 5 when he started on it. So, and she's just there to kind of deliver adorable lines. And luckily, this is very special episode.
Yeah.
So there weren't really very special episodes of My Three Sons. And I guess it gave McMurray another person to mumble to. And
yeah. Well, My Three Sons was on a long time.
Yeah.
So they definitely had to resort to this kind of thing. But really the whole point of the show was that there were these men living together, the sons, and without a female in the house. And bring on the Beverly Garland character. The whole cast was bloated at this point. Yeah. The show had gotten away from its roots. And this is a classic example of a show that really was aging out and hanging on. And yeah, I mean...
And didn't Robbie have some babies too?
Yeah, there was Tina.
Robbie or Katie. Yeah. Tina's the actress.
Yeah. So Katie had twins, I believe.
Yeah.
Late in the show's run, so they're all kind of kids going around. Yeah, Dodie was. I don't think she was well liked by many fans of the show, but she doesn't really annoy me so much, but unnecessary. Yeah. I can't argue with that pick. I think Ernie actually might be one of the best examples of this, where they actually pulled it off and didn't wreck the show. And
that was more because they fired one of the sons, right?
Like the oldest son had sort of aged out / left the show.
Right.
So
they needed someone.
They needed a third son. Yeah.
Yeah. And that didn't quite coincide with like the switch or the uncle switch, right?
Correct.
Yeah. It was like a little after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a little before, I think.
A little before Uncle Charlie?
I think, yeah, because there were like 5. Well, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
But like I said, My Three Sons was on a long time.
And different networks. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that show was all over the place. It was black and white color.
Yeah.
It was different cast, different sons. Fred MacMurray stuck around. He was the one constant.
Yeah, he is a constant.
Ready for my number 4?
I am.
Is this actress went on to much renown and has had a distinguished career, but this may have broken her through, but not a highlight in my opinion. I'm talking about Janet Jackson as Penny on Good Times. Not a fan of that. Good Times was a show that did not need anybody else. Mm-hmm. They should have just ended the show. I hate to say it. You had Bookman, you had Walona taking a central part in the show when you lose the parents. And yeah, Penny was just an example of, okay, just end the show if you're going to resort to this.
Yeah.
Sorry, Janet Jackson. Sorry, Miss Jackson. But not you make my list in a bad way here.
Seems like a good choice.
Well, it's been a long time since I've seen those later episodes because I didn't like them. And I can remember and I was watching them in reruns, and the Penny episodes would be a disappointment because they'd all be focusing on Penny. And for me, where's JJ? Where's Michael even?
Right.
And of course, the parents were my favorites even then. So It's not even so much the addition of this kind of character, but the focus on that character as part of the storylines is what really gets me. So
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan of those years of good times.
As beloved as Norman Lear has been, how much he changed TV, his shows often went right into the well of cliches.
Yeah, they fall hard when they do.
Right.
That's why number 4, Penny, Janet Jackson.
All right. My number 3, we might be moving into overlap territory, but one of the classic examples, Scrappy Doo from Scooby-Doo. He was Scooby-Doo's nephew. Unlike Scooby, he was smart. He spoke in perfect English. I think he punched people. He wasn't afraid. I don't think he was into food that much.
No, didn't work.
And as a kid, it doesn't work. I mean, and no offense to Mark Evanier, who we like, who was involved in the creation, but, he was doing his job.
Right.
As a kid, those kind of things the things clearly targeted at me, like, oh, I need a kid to relate to, always bugged me. I'm sure I've mentioned that before, like Orko on He-Man or what.
Yep.
It's like, I mean, maybe like a 4-year-old or something needs that, but I don't think so.
It's a classic example of exactly as you describe. It's pandering and it's corporate driven instead of like something that comes up out of a creative decision. And this is the classic example that Scrappy Doo. I think maybe there's some revisionist history in recent years trying to rehabilitate Scrappy, but no, Scrappy doesn't work for me either. And it was one of my honorable mentions, and the only reason he wasn't on my list is because I was not a big fan of Scooby-Doo as a kid, so I found it easier to ignore Scrappy Doo at the time. But
that's good.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
And my memory is that the show, kind of most of the gang wasn't on it either. It was like Scrappy, Scooby, and Shaggy, and which somehow made Scooby and Shaggy not as funny, but Scrappy had like the emphasis of being the funny one and the serious one or something.
Yeah.
Where like the mentor thing. I don't want to see Scooby-Doo mentor anyone.
Exactly.
Unless he's mentoring them in being a coward and hungry.
Right. Yeah. It's just funny that with as many different incarnations of Scooby-Doo, as many formats as they used, they eventually go, okay, well, let's try adding Scrappy, but you couldn't have done something else. I mean, you had celebrities. It seemed like they could have done something other to extend that other than adding Scrappy.
Or just go back to doing your basic Scooby-Doo story.
Yeah. Well, that's a good choice, and one of the more infamous ones we've named so far, definitely. So I salute that one as well.
All right.
Number 3. This is one that may show up on yours. Sam from Different Strokes.
He might, yeah.
Would you want to talk about him, or I mean,
well,
should we just talk about
He's
him?
my number 1.
Oh, really? Okay. You know what? I'll tell you what. If you're more passionate about it, all I'll say is it was something that annoyed me at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it holds up very well either.
No.
Danny Cooksey couldn't pull that off. Let's talk about that. Give you the chance to talk about that more as your number 1.
Okay. My number 2, we might have a similar situation. I don't know. Andy Keaton from Family Ties.
Well, you know what? He was my number 2 as well.
Oh,
so
good.
Yeah,
that works out
pretty well.
So, Andy is the baby that was born like halfway through the series, and double cliche because he was a baby for like a season, and then the next season he was 5.
Yeah.
And Alex was a mentor to him, and a lot of the jokes were like he was a little tiny Alex. He of course had the big mop of floppy hair. Like he's physically defining the Moppet idea. I don't remember having a huge problem with him at the time, but I don't know. It's not like Alex didn't get to be. He had to be a straight man,
right?
And of course he's the funniest person on there.
Yeah.
So,
and so it humanized Alex a little bit. Big deal. He could have done the same thing by showing affection for his sisters, which he did. And what I didn't like about Andy was he was one of those examples of the cloying thing of just giving the kids precocious things to say.
Yeah.
Or having him dress exactly like Alex and stuff like that. It's easy gags that the show started to rely on. And
right, and he would say like, so it's a 5-year-old saying things about Reagan or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if it was a 2-year-old, I would have found that funny, actually. You bring up an interesting point. You get the babies and you get the 5-year-olds because they age them, but you don't see a lot of stories about 2- and 3-year-olds on TV.
Yeah.
I think
they're too hard to wrangle.
Yeah. I think that would be more interesting if you did some more of that, maybe. But
yeah.
Oh yeah. Nothing against the kid that played him, but it was a thankless job, and to me that really irritated me at the time, and that was when you start thinking, okay, Family Ties is on the decline. Although
this well.
I was just going to say, I think, I don't know if he was as big a presence as maybe we think he was. I sort of get the impression that they maybe intended for him to be a bigger part of the family than wound up being, as is sometimes the case when these things don't really work out so much.
Well, they also had Nick.
Yeah.
Who had about the same intelligence level.
Good point.
And could work 15 hours a day.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I was going to say the one saving grace for me is that it briefly led to that spin-off show about the daycare center that at least introduced me to both Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Courtney Thorne-Smith.
Okay, well, that's worthy of mention.
I don't think it's a good show.
Yeah,
but
Day by Day?
Day by Day, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who the leads were on.
I think it was Linda Kelsey. Kelsey?
Yeah.
The one from Lou Grant.
Okay.
And
I know what the guy, I can visualize the guy, but...
yeah. It was, okay, well...
Yeah.
I can't
anyway,
think of it right now.
we probably talked about him.
Something? The one saving grace, though, I would agree. I can't think of any other saving graces. There aren't a whole lot of memorable Andy storylines on Family Ties.
No.
When we talked about the show, we did not choose an Andy episode.
No. I can't even imagine Uncle Ned being around a 5-year-old.
Ugh, it would not be the optimal use of Uncle Ned for sure.
Anyway, that would be bad.
Yeah. So both of us picked Andrew for number 2.
All right.
And so we know you're number 1. Do you want to do your? Should we revisit?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So Sam in the latter 2 seasons of Different Strokes. Gary Coleman, of course, getting older, a little less cute, and they had Mr. Drummond get remarried, and they brought in this little redhead kid from Tennessee, played by Danny Cooks. Yeah, definitely. And Sham, and he just
Mr. D.
Yeah, and it was just annoying at the time. I mean, and I was probably aging out of the show, but I was sticking around, and it's like, oh man, and very many special episodes about him.
Right.
Whatever, getting kidnapped or running away, just I wrote about it on the website. I watched 1 or 2 episodes. Definitely one with Hoyt Axton, who was his dad, who wasn't around much.
Yeah.
And the Hoyt Axton and Conrad Bain parts of that were pretty decent, but in the middle of that you have Sam.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was causality so much as correlation or whatever, but as Sam's screen time went up, Willis's screen time went down, Kimberly's went down, so to me that was a net loss for the show, and Sam just did not work for me at all.
And I wasn't going to try not to say bad things about the actors, but when you compare him to like Gary Coleman's sort of natural charisma and talent, like most kid actors, Gary Coleman is kind of a special case, I think.
Yeah.
Or Mino, or some of these people, but he didn't quite have that.
I think there's something going on with the writing of the show too, but I'd argue that even if Gary Coleman wasn't puffing out his cheeks and saying catchphrases, they could have found more interesting things to do with him.
Right.
But instead it was just like they gave up and decided, okay, we're going to turn him into the big brother mentor and bring in this cute kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they really gave a chance to do interesting stories, like age-appropriate stories with Arnold Jackson.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd call that a misfire.
Yeah.
All right, so we reveal my number 1?
Yep.
Okay, my number 1 is a little bit older, I think, than the ones we've mentioned. But this was one that really got my craw as a kid.
Yeah.
My number 1 is Chachi from Happy Days.
Ah, yeah.
You got a show built around the Fonz, and some people would argue it was better when it wasn't just the Fonzie show, but I'd rather have the Fonzie show than the Chachi show, or even the Fonzie and Chachi show.
Yeah.
Now, the Fonz got even worse by the end of its run, as
right.
I think we might have talked about before, but boy, Chachi, once Chachi got on, they really pushed Chachi hard, Mike. They really started emphasizing him way too much.
And you got a Fonz. You don't need a second Fonz.
Yeah, it's like a mini Fonz, and it comes off more as a knockoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bad move.
So for you, it was good news when he got his own show.
Yeah, get him out of the... Oh, no, the show was pretty much down the tubes at that
right.
point anyway, but... Yeah, I don't want Fonz to be defined by how he acts towards Chachi, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, and Fonz didn't need a mentee because he already had 3 mentees.
Exactly. That was interesting.
Yeah. And
that made sense, and the way they built those relationships up, that was good, but then Fonz and Chachi was kind of a... You know what? And Scott Baio did pretty much exactly what they asked him to do.
Yeah.
This is a case where I won't criticize the actor so much, but that character was really annoying to me.
Right.
Again, I got to say, not a good call totally unnecessary, and it not only brought on a character that was uninteresting, but it brought down one of the best characters in TV history in the Fonz. So for that, I pick him as my number one.
Well picked. So I've got 3 honorable mentions. A couple of them are, I would say none of them are ones I know a lot about or remember necessarily, but I think they're interesting. So the first one is the Stephanie character who was added to All in the Family.
Oh, boy, that's a good one.
Played by Danielle Brisebois. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
I'd like to hear Archie Bunker pronounce that.
Yeah. So I used to think she was some sort of related to them somehow, but I guess she just got dumped on their doorstep. And Archie and Edith a little bit raised her, but then Edith died, and I guess everyone else had left. And I know the character stuck around for the Archie's Place, but even like just seeing random reruns or seeing Archie's Place, which I think saw more on a regular basis because my dad watched it. Like I just who is this person?
Yeah.
I don't understand the relationship. And I knew she wasn't their kid, and I thought maybe she was like Mike and Gloria's kid, like they had abandoned their kid, which happens, and they're crazy hippies.
Right.
Grandparents have to raise kids sometimes,
Yeah.
and it was kind of that idea, and then just like I don't know what's going on here.
That's a good call. I was not watching the show that much, but Bring Her On made it a completely different show. And in the case of Archie Bunker's Place, that's okay because it is a completely different show.
Yeah.
But the point is, boy, does it become a different thing when you got Archie interacting with a little girl, and I don't know.
And I guess the course of that entire show is about Archie becoming more human and dropping his prejudices, and I think that's interesting because I do think sometimes people think if you're that way, you can't ever not be that way, which is a hopeless way to think about it.
Yeah.
So I think people can learn to not have those prejudices, but there's also the aspect of just softening a heel character.
Yeah.
Which is quite often not a good result.
And just creatively, again, maybe kind of going back to the correlation causation thing, but creatively, if you're thinking of All in the Family at its peak, you're not thinking about these years at all. So
and right now, like I don't have a memory of any specific scene, but I can just imagine a cute kid saying something and then Archie doing an Archie kind of reaction, like with the way you would react to Edith saying something goofy, like fuming at this cute kid, but
in the audience howling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good, like a couple times a season with like guest characters, but as a regular part of the show,
Yeah. My next one, I honestly don't know anything about, but I was kind of thinking is trying to find out people. I'm like, well, grandkids must be a way that shows do this sometimes. And so this Jessica from the Jeffersons, who is Lionel's daughter, Lionel and I'm forgetting the other.
Wow, Jenny.
Jenny, yeah. So again, there was a baby situation, and then there was a kid. Ebony Smith played her in the last season. Wow. I don't remember anything about that, but I can imagine it.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
So you think it's something where they aged her up real suddenly?
They might have, yeah. Or like Lionel wasn't on that season at all, and Jenny sort of was gone for a little bit, and then I think that season was a regular again. And so there might have been a slight age up, but not like Andy drastic.
Boy, that's a good one. I don't remember that one. I'm going to have to look into that one.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that I could maybe accept George Jefferson doting over his granddaughter. I don't, if it was a baby.
Yeah.
If it became like a
Wheezy,
a 5-year-old walking around and being and out sassing George.
Yeah.
That I do not want to see.
No.
I wouldn't mind seeing George be like, prickly with everybody else, but doting on his granddaughter and like being a jerk to everybody else to look after his granddaughter. I could see that, and I would accept that, but yeah.
My last one is one we've talked about briefly before, and I think I just don't like conceptually. I don't remember Alfonso Ribeiro being added to Silver Spoons. I remember at the time at least thinking, well, they're just putting him on there because he's popular.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the episodes enough to know about the relationship between those characters or if he actually was detracting from the show, but I just don't like the idea of, oh, this kid got famous, so let's stick him on this show.
Yeah.
NBC or whoever, oh, we like that. Let's do that.
You were bitter and resentful even then.
And like the tap dance kid.
Yeah, I'd give me Jason Bateman over Alfonso Ribeiro as a sidekick on that show for sure.
Of course, Jason Bateman was added to like Little House.
Yes. Now I
Which
did not
apparently
mention.
Has a whole history of that.
Well, we know that wasn't Shannon Doherty brought on there?
Yeah, Albert.
There was Albert. Yeah, there were all sorts of characters.
And there was some. I was reading about one that like the Olsons adopted some girl to replace Nellie.
Oh my gosh!
And like the Mrs. Olsen intentionally adopted the most bratty kid she could find.
Because it would be better for the ratings.
Yeah. So basically, it was just a mini Nellie, because
Yeah.
Nellie was an adult or whatever.
So she was like yelling at her husband, "We won't have any interesting storylines around here if we don't adopt someone that's."
Oh, honey. Go back to selling candy.
I did not have anyone from Little House in my honorable mentions, in on our list, but I'm glad you mentioned that because that was
Albert.
seemed like they did that every year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Adopting kids, birthing kids, the older kids becoming adults and birthing kids.
Yep. Yep.
A lot of birthing on that show.
Indeed.
Victor French probably, he and his wife probably had a kid.
Yeah.
Or adopted a kid.
There's always kids going through and getting dropped out of the sky and whatnot.
Remember Highway to Heaven when they added a kid to that?
Oh, totally wrecked the
This is
concept.
a buddy comedy. An angel and a cantankerous guy, and now there's some kid. No, that didn't happen.
This generally just doesn't.
And it was a kid who died, so it was a kid angel. That's
Yeah,
it was Gary Coleman. It was
instantly.
no.
This concept just generally does not work.
No.
Are we ready for my honorable mentions?
Yes, we are.
This is a little bit outside our time frame as well, but the show's kind of started in our era, so I'm going to talk. I'm going to bring up Leo on Growing Pains. Leo DiCaprio, some homeless kid that they brought into the family and became like their resident wise guy, cute kid, or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't really like the show, so it wouldn't make my list. But
And there's also like a daughter.
yes,
an Andy
Chrissy
kind of
or
daughter,
something.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, not a fan of the show, or I'm sure she would have made the list. Okay, this one, maybe you know more about this, maybe, but wasn't there Nikki on Webster? Did they bring
I was
in
trying to remember if there was a kid on
It was
the
Corn
next-
Nemec, wasn't it? The kid that was like but I think it was like the last season.
And he was younger than Webster?
Wasn't
he
he?
older?
Or wasn't he like a peer of Webster?
Oh, boy.
Well, he was at that point because it wasn't he like Papadopoulos has like brought him on or something, and
Like adopt or
yeah, I wasn't really watching the show at that
no,
point.
I don't think I was. I'm curious about that because I did see that Bumper Robinson was on Webster at some point.
Oh gosh,
I have to go to the disambiguation page.
yes, for Webster.
Yes,
The crack research team is looking into this.
other Webster TV series.
Webster, which started on network and I think went into syndication by the end. Emmanuel Lewis was getting older, aging out of his character, so they definitely did a few things with the format.
Yeah. Corn Nemec is Nikki Papadopoulos, 1987 to 1988. I don't know much beyond that.
Well, I can tell you it was no good, whatever the deal was with him.
Yeah,
I'm confident in saying that it was not a good move.
I feel like he was older though, because I mean, didn't he have his own show pretty soon after that?
He did, but he was playing. But Webster was old at that time too.
Yeah. Well, that's
Well-
interesting. Maybe that's something we can put in the show notes.
Yeah,
A little more.
we'll get to the bottom of that. But
Yeah.
some of my other honorable mentions. I wasn't really watching the show that much at this point, but I wanted to mention the Smurflings
Yeah.
because I think that's a ridiculous concept of you've got a bunch of cute blue characters and you bring on cuter, younger blue characters.
Exactly. The Smurfs. I mean, they already had Jokey
Yeah.
and Clum. They didn't need any more. And that I think that concept is from the Peyo comics, but
And one of the characters was even like what, Sassy or Sassette?
Yeah.
One of those.
yeah,
So that's blatant pandering.
there was some kid hanging out with Gargamel too,
Uh,
like an apprentice.
oh gosh,
Gargamel has a cat. That's all he needs.
that's horrible. Okay, Facts of Life had two.
Mm-hmm.
Pippa,
Right.
but the one that really got me was Mackenzie Aston's.
Yeah.
No, I think his name was Mac on the show, maybe even, or I want to think Andy or something. But
his Andy. Yeah.
yeah, okay, Andy, and he wore like a sweater tied around his neck all the time and
Yeah.
hung out and was supposed to be again like wise beyond his years.
Right.
And, oh, that was terrible. And I was watching the show at that point, much to my shame, and
Yeah.
totally annoyed by Mackenzie Aston. And he was one they tried to push as a big heartthrob for the
Hanging out with Clooney.
tween set, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they actually had three. They had Pamela Adlon played the shoplifting girl,
Oh yeah.
the street urchin, but I guess they didn't. And I think that was like make Joe a mentor kind of
Right,
thing.
right. Which is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got two left. One that really irritates me more, and one that I think we are obligated to mention. So which one should I go with first?
The one that irritated. No, the one we're obligated to.
Okay,
mention.
Cousin Oliver
Right.
is probably the classic example of this. To me, though, at the time, Cousin Oliver wasn't on that many episodes, and The Brady Bunch was just such a ridiculous show to begin with that it was kind of like, wow, Cousin Oliver's annoying, and like many of the things we've talked about it brought into, but Cousin Oliver was actually, like, Robbie Rist was actually pretty good in that role, I think, and I'm not defending Cousin Oliver so much, but he didn't annoy me nearly as much as some of these other ones.
Did I read that he played another Cousin Oliver role in another show?
Yes, he was. I think he was on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Right, yeah.
Like Ted Knight.
Ted Knight.
Of all people.
Right, adopted him, yeah.
Yeah. Which, you don't need to say any more there.
No.
So the one that really gets me, and it's one that's recently getting me, as you might be able to guess this, is Jeremy Ralph Macchio from 8 Is Enough. And I'm, currently watching some of these, and
right.
Oh, gosh. Just the character is annoying, and you've got so many characters on the show, and Nicholas isn't even that old yet that you need to do this.
Right.
You've got Nicholas and his friends, you've got so many things going on, and really you have to bring in another character. And the thing that's also irritating is, so this is the 5th season, and they could have moved Susan out of the house because she got married, but because Merle is on the road, her husband, and she's having a baby, Susan's actually moving back into the Bradford house, so it's not like she's even leaving.
Yeah.
So you're fixing a problem that doesn't exist with that character, and the character himself is just so, it's more of like a low-rent Chachi,
right?
Because he's like cocky and thinks he's all cool and everything. So that annoys me. But he didn't make my list only because at the time I wasn't watching 8 Is Enough in its original run. It wasn't until reruns, and I didn't really have much memory of seeing these episodes. So.
And why do you need to do that when you could just make Kenny P. Landers a more
exactly
important character?
Good call on that. Yeah, more Kenny P. Landers.
Have like his parents die and he has to move in, or maybe not die. Maybe it get like on Hazel, get a job overseas.
Yeah, mysterious business opportunity, or leave overseas and just leave him there. Yeah, exactly. So
you've only got 7 kids living with you now, or 6, or whatever.
Yeah. That's not good. And if I had been watching the show more when it was originally aired, I'm sure he would have made the list. But now he's just like the least honorable of my honorable mentions.
Right.
And I think that's all I got, Mike.
That's all I got. Kids, we don't want them on TV.
No, but we do like our 2 to 11-year-old demographic listening to our show. So
this is true.
Kids, nothing against you.
Right. If you want to write in, maybe some of them agree. We don't want to be pandered to with these dumb kids.
Yeah. And maybe we can get into this more in our next episode where our co-host Sparky joins us for further discussion of these issues.
He's radical.
Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network Shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Battle of the Network Shows.